You are now tuned in to the Triple Threat Podcast.
Yes, that's right, folks. You're here with the Triple Threat. Ken Triplett along with Jordan Triplett, my partner in crime. Jordan, it's been a little bit. How are you?
We're good as long as this team keeps winning these easy games.
Well, obviously that's what the schedule has come up with the Bills, and I agree with them that they shouldn't apologize for who their opponents are. When we saw the schedule, everyone was like, what, if Josh Allen can improve and if the Bills defense can get better in certain areas and the offense can improve with the additions with Beasley and Brown and things break right, the Bills could start this season 8-3. And guess what? The Bills are in position to start the season 8-3 with the Broncos coming into town this upcoming Sunday. But after that, things get a lot tougher for the Bills, and we'll get into that a little bit as far as their upcoming schedule and what kinds of scenarios could happen for the Bills to make the playoffs. Everyone believes that the magic number this year in the AFC will be 10 wins. I'm one of them that believes that that's the case, that the Bills have to at least get to 10 wins in order to be a playoff team. But last week's game against the Miami Dolphins, by far the best game that Josh Allen has played so far as a Buffalo Bill. And Jordan, I'll just get your thoughts in terms of what you saw last week.
I saw Josh do what he almost always does against Miami. The guy turned in a career day for him. I believe he was had the 10th highest QBR recorded this season and the highest ever of his career. And he's now made it 5 consecutive games with 2 touchdowns and 0 picks. And he's the first QB since Russell Wilson in 2015 to do so. And in that group, he also got names like Aaron Rodgers, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees. So Josh Allen, he's been doing pretty great. He hasn't thrown for 300 yards yet, which is what a lot of people are focusing on. But hey, the guy gets wins. Yeah, exactly. The guy gets wins. The guy get points. I mean, what more can you ask for? Who cares about an arbitrary number like 300?
You know what? Last night's game, or the Monday night game, Phillip Rivers threw for 353 yards, and he stunk. He was horrible.
Yep.
He threw 4 interceptions. The Chargers lost that game against the Chiefs. But, it's an arbitrary number that means nothing. Playing in the NFL, especially nowadays, with all the metrics and analytics and efficiency stats, it's all about, again, how efficient can you be with that ball in your hands, and can you get the W? And right now, Josh Allen, when you put his record up against a lot of second-year quarterbacks, he's right at the top of that list. He's playing much better. After last week's game, the Bills did beat the Dolphins. Really just beat them up 37-20, which again was the most complete game for Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. We've been waiting for that for a long time, at least this particular season. So let's transition now into, what can the Bills continue to work on to improve? Because I think this is a game that you can really look at and gain momentum and say, we can be even better than this. I think the Bills gained a lot of confidence after this game. So what are some of the things that you're seeing, Jordan, that the Bills can fix or work upon in order to get over to that next level and get people seeing that they indeed are a playoff caliber team?
I think the main thing with the team right now is that they really have to focus on landing that knockout blow. All year we've seen it where they keep teams in games. Even the first Dolphins game, it came to an onside kick that Micah Hyde took the distance and made that game look a little more lopsided than it really was. But this last Dolphins game, we saw this team answer everything Miami did. They had complete control of this game, and we haven't seen that at all this year. Even with all the wins they've been racking up, it's always coming down to the wire. Or actually, I would say since the second game against the Giants, we haven't seen that. But that was early in the year. I don't want to really count that in terms of how much the team has grown since that point. But they really need to focus on just getting those points where they need to, because otherwise it'll turn into a game like the Eagles, where we started out strong and we just couldn't answer anything we did, and it just got bad from there.
Well, when you look at how that game unfolded this past Sunday, Jordan, You saw the score 37-20, and if you didn't watch the game, you would say, oh, the Bills put some points up. That's great. But the defense didn't play all that well. Well, that's not true. They gave up only 13 points, and the reason for that is because the special teams unit of the Buffalo Bills once again,
Gosh.
just ugly. Yeah, just giving up, what was it, a 102-yard kickoff return to the Miami Dolphins, and they've been flirting with that happening to them for a long time now, and it finally broke free. So that's one of the things that I think the Bills really need to address: our special teams, kickoff coverage, punt coverage, and Stephen Hauschka, who appears to have righted his ship this past Sunday against the Dolphins, but he's been inconsistent all season as well. So we'll see how he continues to work, especially as the wind kicks up, the weather gets a bit squirrely, and but overall, special teams, the Bills have to address these gaping holes that can hurt them as the season unfolds.
Get ready for that Buffalo weather, because this is not going to be any fun being out on that field trying to kick those balls in that swirling wind. He's really got to get it together and be consistent with his kicks. And he's shown last week that he can get back to that level. But again, it's a game against the Dolphins. I want to see him do it against these competitive teams that we have upcoming, and also special teams. If the Dolphins are messing us up on special teams, I'm really fearful for what every other team can do. And that's for offense and defense with special teams, whether we're returning the kick or covering the kick. We just haven't done much to really enforce our will on that phase of the field.
Well, the age-old adage is that special teams is 1/3 of the game. I still believe that, and I think the Bills really need to focus on improving that unit. And I think that as the weather begins to change, it becomes even more important to have a solid special teams unit for field position. Being able to keep your opponents, beyond that 25-yard line marker, if you will. And in that particular play, I don't know why Hauschka kicked directly to the Dolphins receiver. His name slips my mind right now, but he kicked it right to him, and I thought he should have either kicked it through the end zone or maybe kicked it towards one of the pylons and cornered him into the one side of the field. But maybe it was a mistake by Hauschka, or maybe he was directed to do that. But special teams for sure is something the Bills have to improve upon. Also, I'd like to see the Bills defensively more pressure on the edges. And this is just my list in terms of improvement. You may have a different list. But defensive pressure on the edges, I think, is something that is in need of improvement. I think the Bills get a good amount of their sacks through interior pressure, coming from Phillips and Latuile and at times Ed Oliver. But I think that Jerry Hughes has seen his better days, and Trent Murphy is, he's Trent Murphy. He's overpaid, he's overrated, and, I think this is something that the Bills need to address in the draft, which is something that we'll talk about a little bit later in the show.
Yeah, and that goes into another one of my points that they need to work on is they need to force more takeaways. There's a lot of times where we have to force teams in these 3-and-outs, and they do a really good job of that, and I'll give that defense full credit for that. But we really need to give momentum to our offense. We really need to set up Josh Allen with a good field position off of a fumble or off of a pick or just something big that we just need from this team. And we're just sort of getting standard textbook kind of defense from them, and it may just be that we lack playmakers, but we need to find a way to force more turnovers to win those tough games coming up.
Well, see, the issue is what I just mentioned. There's no pressure from the edges.
Yep.
Usually when there's more pressure on the edges, that's when turnovers occur, because you have blindside hits, you have pressure that comes to a quarterback that he's not able to necessarily step up into the pocket, especially when you have a good interior pass rush. So right now it's a bit lopsided where you don't have that edge rush. You have an interior push, but quarterbacks are just flushing out. They're making their plays, or they're throwing the ball away, which really decreases your chances for turnovers. And I think that's a big reason why that's not happening.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to force more indecisiveness from these quarterbacks that we have coming up, because we have some winnable games coming up, definitely, that I think we can swing and find our way into the playoffs, but we really need some big plays coming up.
All right, absolutely. I completely agree with you. Now, my final point of concern for the Bills in terms of their improvement for these last 6 games. Something simple, a screen pass. Can we get a screen pass executed by this offense? Especially with Motor, especially with Devin Singletary. And for some reason, I can't remember when was the last time Josh Allen completed a screen pass to either Gore or Singletary or DeMarco. It's just I just don't get it.
I don't know. I guess they don't have the play in their playbook. Their only screens go to Cole Beasley for like 3 yards. Is that what we want out of the offense?
Well, I mean, those are wide receiver screens. I mean, I just want a basic running back screen, or even a tight end screen with Dawson Knox, who's shown himself to be a really good athlete for this Bills team. But for some reason, these plays get blown up, or they're easy recognizable by the defense, and I think that may be some sort of flaw in Daboll's design that he's really going to have to go back to the drawing board and kind of figure out on his own. But in any event, those are some of the things that we feel that the Bills need to work on and improve upon. Going into these last 6 games. Now, talking about Josh Allen as we do every week, and he's obviously a polarizing character around the NFL. You either love him or hate him. So let's talk about his development right now. Are you happy with where Josh Allen is at right now in terms of his overall development?
Right now, I might be in a small minority. I'm not sure, but I absolutely love where Josh Allen is right now. A lot of people want more from him. A lot of people don't think he's capable of more. But Josh Allen has improved so much since last year. The guy is right now, since his last interception, he's thrown for 1,120 yards on 57.5% and 9 touchdowns, good for a 96.6 rating. And that's since his last pick. The guy is not making as many mistakes. He's still fumbling. Luckily, we were able to recover a fumble last time out. But he's still got the fumbling problem. But otherwise, the guy is managing a game really well, and he's getting us points. And I can't really ask for more right now. But I would like him to do that against these tough teams that we have coming up, because we've seen against tougher defenses how he's just limited in his ability. But I just want to see him take that next step to be able to take on the tough teams. But right now, especially compared to last year, he's doing great in my book.
I completely agree with you, and I think one of the things that hurts Josh Allen in terms of a perspective standpoint is that it's the Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jacksons and a lot of these guys and Deshaun Watsons that have really blown up the league in their second to third year, and then people are looking for the same things from Josh Allen. It's just not completely fair, because everyone knew that Josh Allen was going to be a bit raw and a bit of a project coming into the NFL. And I just want to read some highlights from his scouting report. And I'm getting this from cover1.net that kind of talks about, his strengths and his weaknesses. And the scouting report really hits the nail on the head. And you can kind of see where he's really improved upon and some of the things that he really needs to work on in terms of getting to that next level. So basically, some of his strengths, I'll just kind of highlight them. It says, a fighter who doesn't get brought down early inside or outside of the pocket, can consistently break tackles with his play strength or athleticism and extend plays. Very good understanding of where to go with the ball versus single high looks or typical coverages versus certain formations, such as triple bunches sets. So you see Daboll with a lot of trips bunch sets that really helps out the recognition part of Josh Allen's games. So this includes the basic 2- and 3-man route combinations that attack half of the field, such as snag, spot, smash levels, and flood concepts. He shows mastery of those concepts from shotgun, under center, and off of play action. Play action, I say all the time, is Josh Allen's best friend in the NFL. He can quickly reacquire targets downfield outside of the play structure. So those are some of the strengths that we've seen. Also, above average recognition of man coverage and what mismatch to exploit. He's getting much better at that. Where you see John Brown getting man-to-man coverage, what happens? Boom, 15, 20, 25-yard completion on those quick in routes that John Brown likes to run when he sees man coverage. And so you saw that a lot during the Dolphins game. Now, in terms of some weaknesses, let's see here. A lack of anticipation versus complex coverages or split field coverages. That's something that he's going to have to grow into. The anticipation throws. He doesn't throw the ball on time all the time. That's a next level thing for Josh Allen, not throwing the ball on time. Let's see here. Placement and control issues that he has. He can hit or miss deep. Struggles to throw to a spot with touch out ahead of the receiver. Again, we've seen those issues where he does lack touch on routes, certainly where it's called for receivers that aren't able to handle his balls or those rocket balls he likes to throw. So these are just some of the things that, from a scouting report stance, that I feel that Josh really needs to work on to get to that next level and to really display his overall talent and abilities and again, make that next step.
Yeah, he's really progressed nicely. And since week 7, no one has more touchdowns than Josh Allen in the entire NFL with 12. And he's still getting there. And I think a lot of his limitations does come from the offense because it's so textbook. It hurts. It's so rehearsed and scripted that it hurts so much. Like, the guy's best trait is easily his playmaking ability, whether that's on the ground or making more time in the pocket to make a throw, or the deep bomb when he does connect on those. And just to have him keep throwing these 3-yard passes over the middle, like, it helps for his progression. It helps for his completion percentage. It helps for moving the chains sometimes. But we get stuck on a lot of drives because so much of the play calling just has Josh do what he's supposed to do, when football is often more than that. It's more of making the big play that you need. And I do think Allen will keep progressing, but at some point we're going to hit a ceiling with the Ball's offense, and we're going to have to let him go and let Josh Allen loose. But right now, and at this very moment, obviously we're doing well. We're 7-3. We just need to make sure that Josh is put in the best situation for this tough part of the schedule coming up.
You know, a good example of Josh Allen going through his progressions was that first touchdown pass to John Brown. That made the score 13-0. You could see him. He went from left to middle to right and made his decision right away to release the ball on an absolute rope to John Brown for that first touchdown. It's something that we don't see consistently out of Josh Allen. And you saw it there, and you're like, man, okay, that's what we've been looking for. That's the next level that he really needs to attain and be more consistent with. A couple of the things that he needs to work on. This is again from the Cover1.net scouting report. His processor can shut down when he sees pressure. Basically, what that means is he sees pressure. His eyes go from downfield to what's in front of him immediately, which means he's no longer watching receivers, and he takes off. So there's a lot of times where he takes off from the pocket way too early, and he's not able to reestablish himself, get back into a moment where he's looking for receivers down the field, and he either gets a 3 or 4 yard gain, or he gets sacked, or he has to throw the ball away, which has resulted in plays that haven't been efficient for this offense. The second thing, as game speed increases or during critical times in games versus premier opponents, his accuracy and placement tends to suffer. So we're going to see, again, whether or not he's really grown over these next, well, actually starting this week, because the Denver Broncos have now this may be a surprise to some people, their record is not as bad as they are. So this is a really dangerous team that the Bills are playing right now. Thank goodness the game is at home. But the Bills fans have to brace yourselves that this Broncos defense is the 6th rated defense in the NFL. And this Denver Broncos team has also lost 4 games by 4 or less points. So they've been in a lot of ball games. They play a lot of tight ball games. They've lost 4 ball games that have been really tight. Again, 4 points or less, where they could be in a different situation as opposed to being 3-7 coming into this game. So that's something to look at. I think it begins this week, and then after that, you've got Dallas, you've got Pittsburgh, you've got Baltimore, you've got New England. So a lot of work coming up for this Buffalo Bills team.
Yeah, and that Broncos game, again, like you said, not going to be easy. It's really easy to forget that they still have Von Miller and Bradley Chubb. So you got guys who are stars rushing on the edge each and every down. You still got Chris Harris Jr.
Actually, I think Chubb is on IR.
Chubb is on IR.
I think Chubb's on IR.
Oh, I just had a Stephen A. Smith moment there. But yeah, they still have stars on that defense. Chris Harris Jr., still a lockdown corner. They are a scary team to me in the sense that they could be the Bills right now. They, with all those close games, they could be 7-3, and have that record that we have right now. It's really for lack of offense completely, that their season is really just not gone, in an ideal way. And it's not something that they didn't foresee with their ceiling being Joe Flacco, at quarterback, and it only getting worse from there. But still a team you need to watch out for. And Philip Lindsay, a guy that they have running the ball, we've had so much trouble defending the run. So I expect him to get a high workload against his team.
Well, not only that, Bills fans, it's not just Phil Lindsay, it's also Royce Freeman. And, combined, the Denver Broncos have over 1,000 yards rushing between those two players. And combined, they also average about 4.5 yards per carry. So they like to run the ball. They run the ball very well. Lindsay is a speedster. He can also run inside the tackles. Royce Freeman is a bit of a bruiser. He's a younger Frank Gore, if you will. So this run defense is going to be tested once again by a team that's going to see the Bills' weakness and try to exploit it. So not an easy game by far. Again, I say thank goodness the game's at home because I think that's going to be the difference for the Bills. And I'm not going to give a score yet, but I am expecting about a 3-point win for the Bills, down to the wire once again, that we've seen all year long. But and again, a must-win game because we'll talk about the schedule and we might as well just dive on into it, because the Bills are going to have to steal a game. If they're going to win this Broncos game, they're going to have to steal a game from two more teams to get to that 10-win mark. And I think everyone's looking at that Jets game at the end of the year, at home in Buffalo, as one of those games where the Bills should win. I personally think it's going to come down to that Jets game. They're going to be 9-6 at that point, and they're going to have to win that Jets game to make it into the playoffs. So where does that last win come from? Does it come from Dallas? Does it come from Pittsburgh, New England, or Baltimore? What are your thoughts, Jordan?
Well, first and foremost, that Jets game, I don't think it's really a gimme, and it most likely is coming down to that game. And that Jets game, they would love nothing more than to knock us out of the playoffs like we did to them a couple years ago. At the end of the season, at the very last game. So definitely still not completely sold on that game being an easy win, but a game that, again, they should win. In terms of the other game that we do have to steal, it's against teams all with winning records, except the Steelers at 5-5. But even then, I think it has to be that Steelers game that they do take. I really do hope that they can beat Dallas on Thanksgiving, and I would love to see it in person. But that Steelers game, I'm really circling right there because that's a team that they have to beat to keep them out of the wild card race, because they still are in the hunt. They're just 2 games back of us. So it's a game that is a must win, because if you lose that game, and let's say we don't win until we play them, if we do count this upcoming game against the Broncos as a win, that being an 8-win team, at the least, the Steelers likely winning a game or two between that point. And that could be really a difference between whether the Steelers do tie with us in record, to get that wild card spot. So you definitely have to win that in case you want any sort of tiebreaker.
Well, great minds think alike, Jordan. I agree with you 1,000%. I think the Bills' best matchup of those 4 games is against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think with their injuries the Steelers have had, the quarterback play they've gotten out of Mason Rudolph, and the strength of the Bills. Yeah, I mean, it's a real thing.
Yeah, Mason.
The strength of this Bills team, being defense, the running game for the Steelers. I'm not sure if John Connor is still available or not. I think he's out, at least for this week. So they're really hurting at the running back position. Their wide receivers have been inconsistent. And even though that game was in Pittsburgh, I just think matchup wise, that's the game the Bills need to win. And I think they can win. I actually think it's an easier game than this Denver game coming up in terms of matchups. So I agree with you 1,000% that Steelers game is that game that is going to have to put the Bills at 9 wins at that point. I think Baltimore is a horrible matchup for the Bills. I don't think the Bills, just like the rest of the NFL, have an answer for Lamar Jackson.
Nope.
Their running game, when you think about it, their defense is average, run of the mill. But I think with Baltimore's running game and Lamar Jackson added to that, just not a good matchup for the Bills at all. So I just don't see that as a win. New England is in New England. And again, love to see the Bills steal one on Thanksgiving Day. That could be a surprise win for the Bills. You never know. I do think the Bills match up well against the Cowboys. But I'm not expecting a win. I'm just hoping for one because of the stage. And the Dolphins, not the Dolphins. The Cowboys typically do play well on Thanksgiving because they're so used to playing that game, and they usually just show out and show their best during that time. Having said all that, we did talk a bit about the Broncos. A quick preview. We talked about their defense. We talked about not too much about their offense. They do have Allen as their quarterback now, with Flacco being out. One thing the Bills have to look at in terms of matchups, Cortland Sutton for the Broncos is having a really good year. I believe he's over 850 yards receiving, about 49 catches. And he's a burner. He's a big guy too, 6'4", 212. And that's something that the Bills struggle with, big wide receivers, physical wide receivers. So Cortland Sutton on the offensive end for the Broncos and the running game, it's going to be a lot for the Bills to handle.
Gosh, why can't we ever draft a guy like Sutton? The guy's amazing, especially given the quarterback situation he's had to deal with all year. Huge, like you said, physical, really fast, and a great route runner thus far. I so wish he was a Buffalo Bill, but unfortunately he's going to be on the other side of the field, and that's a matchup we definitely have to watch with this defense. But in terms of the game as a whole, it's going to be another ugly one. And it'll probably be the quickest game that ends all day, just because both teams are going to be running the ball a lot. There's not going to be too many large chunk plays in the passing game, a true defensive struggle. And I see a game like maybe 16-7 Bills. Something around that range. Yeah, I think it'll stay really close. The Bills getting a bunch of field goals, it being 9-7, and then the Bills finally come away with that touchdown to make it 16-7 at the end.
Okay, all righty. Well, I agree with you. I think it's going to be a defensive struggle as well. I think the Bills will be ready for this game. I think they made a lot of fixes during the Dolphins game that can carry over into this Broncos game. One of them being, thank goodness, Brian Daboll is up in the booth, that he's not on the sidelines anymore. Exactly. Number one, he gets to see from a bird's eye view more of what's going on the field. I don't like, I don't like any coordinator on the field. I just don't. I just think they should be in a booth. I think they get a better view and a better feel for what's going on as the game unfolds. Number two, in regards to the relationship between Daboll and Josh Allen, I'm sure it's a good one. But I think that Allen is going to benefit from not having Daboll in his ear after every single possession, either yelling at him or, not that Allen can't take it, but I think that he gets overcoached. And, what you mentioned to earlier where Josh Allen needs to have the reins taken off, I think that not having Daboll in his ear is a benefit to Josh Allen. He can relax a bit. I know he talks to him on the phone in between series, but it's not the same. And I just think he feels a little bit more freedom and liberty to be a little bit more of himself with Daboll up in the booth. So I think those are some of the things that occur during the NFL season where you don't really notice or think about. But I noticed it, and I think it's a big move for the Bills. I think it's something that not necessarily that Daboll wanted, but I think it's something that Sean McDermott won it. I think that was a move by McDermott that got back to him that maybe that would be something beneficial to the offense. So having said all that, I think, again, I agree with you. It's going to be a defensive struggle. But again, I'm going to go with my 3-point spread. I'm going to go with the Bills 16 and the Broncos 13. The Bills will go to 8-3 after this weekend's game and be on track to make the playoffs.
Okay.
All right. So that's our Bills-Broncos preview and our predictions. We're going to move into some of a bit of the NFL, and big news that occurred over the weekend was the workout or the whatever you want to call it. Some people are calling it a circus or a farce of Colin Kaepernick and what happened in Atlanta over the weekend. Jordan, I just want to get your thoughts quickly.
So first and foremost, this was the most fumbled event I've ever seen in my lifetime with the NFL doing. It's so blatant how clearly and so full of effort that they want Kaepernick not to succeed. Who has a workout for a guy and then says, all right, sign this waiver and so you don't sue us in case you don't get signed? Like, who else has that kind of president? The man just wants to play football quite clearly. He's said multiple times that he's not looking for a contract number. He's not looking for a starting job. He just wants to play football, and they've made it so difficult for the man, and all he did was take a knee, and just everything with this workout was bad, from the short notice to the day they chose, to the venue, to the whole media issue, with media not being able to be there, after they previously did agree that they could. So much was wrong with this, and it was really ridiculous. And if you didn't know what the NFL's agenda was at first, this should be really an eye-opening moment for you, saying, hey, maybe they don't like Kaepernick at all.
Well, this whole situation, number one, it's very strange. At the very beginning, you have to ask yourself, why did the NFL bring this up to begin with? This was a dead issue. And it wasn't like anyone was clamoring or, there's a lot of Kaepernick fatigue on both ends. And, Kaepernick wasn't asking for any workouts or anything like that, at least not publicly or directly. And all of a sudden the NFL says, we're going to give this guy one last try. And I'm like, where did this come from? So I think you have to start there. No one's entirely sure why the NFL brought this up, but it kind of turned out and worked in their favor. Maybe they knew something we didn't know. But clearly Kaepernick came prepared because he already had the venue ready. He already had it set up. Now, depending on who you ask, that waiver that you mentioned was something that was standard that all players have to sign when they do private workouts that say, hey, you can't sue us if we don't hire you. But again, it depends on who you ask. And then Kaepernick's camp, again, already had the venue ready, just in case. He had his own crew there ready. So some people are saying that he doesn't want to play because, he was ready to, he was prepared to be a problem right away. And that, he only wanted the attention. He only wanted to bring awareness back to, his issues or where he was. So again, it depends on who you ask. I'm of the camp that the NFL really tried to set him up, and that, they didn't think, he was either in shape or could still play, and had no intention of signing him. It's just a weird situation. I just don't quite know, unless more information comes out, where this is going, where it's going to end. At the end of the day, Jordan, he's not going to get signed. I think it's over. I just think there's just too much baggage, and this put a big red bow on this entire discussion in terms of whether or not he's ever going to play in the NFL. I just think, with the way things unfolded, the way it's been perceived, and everything that happened, that it's just not going to happen. No one's going to sign him. It's over.
Yeah, we all knew that when he started this whole campaign and he didn't get signed for so long. that he just wasn't getting picked up by any team, not just because the NFL, the powers that be in the league, they just don't like him and what he stands for. But after so long of this whole saga, even me, if I was a football coach, and my season's nearing the end and we're gearing up for the playoffs and trying to make a Super Bowl run, and my team just needs a quarterback, do I want to sign a guy that is going to have more of a story around him than my entire season, to where everything is focused on this one new guy instead of this team I've been working with for so long, for years? It is so much around it now that it essentially works against Colin. And that's one of the major reasons why he doesn't get signed. In terms of the waiver, the waivers, I do know that are standard practice from everything that I've read about the situation. It absolves the leagues of any responsibility in the case of injury. But in terms of suing the league, in case he didn't get signed, that's not exactly a standard that I've seen, on record at all for these workouts. Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk, who's also a former labor lawyer in West Virginia, he said the league was trying to put Kaepernick in a legal checkmate, by doing all these moves here. And it's really true. He was trying to, the league is trying to make it the absolute hardest they can for him, when honestly they don't need to. And that's much more telling than everything. The fact that they feel the need to do everything they did this whole entire saga this week. And we all knew he still wasn't going to get signed no matter what he did. But the fact that Kaepernick still had his workout, he flew in his own receivers for the workout because he didn't know who his would be, with the workout held at the Falcons facility. So it's just a whole bungled situation that the NFL just looks worse for easily. It's just not a good look.
I didn't know that, and I think that changes a lot, at least in my mind, in terms of the NFL's incentive for, again, I mentioned at the very beginning of this conversation, why would they want to do this? And that makes sense, that they wanted to get him into some sort of legal bind or situation that would, completely shut him up, so to speak. And I think maybe Kaepernick sensed that. He was ready for it, and, that was his response, was to, move the venue, control his own narrative. And I think he did a really good job of doing that, by making those moves. So that brings us to our final portion of the show, where we talk about our Dummy of the Week. And in regards to the Colin Kaepernick and NFL situation, my Dummy of the Week is going to be the one and only Stephen A. Smith. Why? I'll tell you why. Basically, not that I disagree with much of what he said logically. It's just that Stephen A. On Twitter, did about a 3-minute diatribe about how Colin Kaepernick doesn't want to play because he didn't take it seriously. He moved the venue. All he wants to do is be a martyr. And I think a lot of his comments were really off base, especially at that point in time, of not having all of the information that came through. And then in today's First Take episode on Tuesday, he talked about how, someone brought up the thing about how the NFL just wanted him to acquiesce and fall into a level of black obedience. And Stephen A's comments towards that was that, well, I don't know any boss that doesn't require obedience from any employer. And, that kind of touched a nerve with me, because Stephen A knows very well that there's a difference between regular obedience, whereby a boss says, hey, I want you to do A, B, C, and D because I hired you to do this, and black obedience, which means you need to stay in your place. You need to dress a certain way. You need to look a certain way. You need to talk a certain way. You can't be yourself, so on and so forth. There's a big difference. And, I just think the way he's come across lately regarding the situation really puts him in a bad light, especially in the African-American community, in terms of how he's handling this whole Colin Kaepernick situation. So Stephen A. gets my Dummy of the Week award. Jordan, Who's your dummy?
Well, my dummy is the entire league just for creating this whole situation that blew up in their face. Who makes this crap sandwich, decides to eat it like the NFL does right here? Just why? I just don't know the reasoning. Like you said before, it was a dead issue. Why ask him, go out of your way? Hey, come do a workout. But we want to control X, Y, Z. And then when he actually holds his own workout because you gave him the press to hold his own private workout, now he looks even better than expected. Now the guy is still delivering deep balls. He's not doing it against an actual defense there. He's just making throws as a workout. But the guy's clearly shown and backed up what he said. He has stayed in shape. He has been waiting for an opportunity. He has been game ready to the best that he can be with not being signed to an NFL team. And it's just a whole bad PR move made for absolutely no fathomable reason by the NFL as a whole.
Alrighty, so thank you so much, Jordan. There you have it. And guys, thank you for listening to another episode of the Triple Threat Podcast. My name is Ken Triplett, joined by Jordan Triplett. We've had a really good time discussing the Bills, and hopefully next week we'll be talking about the 8-3 Buffalo Bills after they hopefully beat the Denver Broncos. And then the big game Thursday, Thanksgiving, Dallas. Jordan and I will be there. We can't wait. We're going to be broadcasting this podcast from Dallas to preview the game and also give our thoughts after the game. Hopefully, again, another Bills win against the Dallas Cowboys. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for listening. This has been Triple Threat Podcast.